Welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. I'm your host, Tyler, and this is episode 64. Rob's back for his second appearance, and this one does not disappoint. Robert Taylor III returns from the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness in Idaho with a full season recap that covers more ground than you might expect. We open with what Rob has been up to before getting into the grading systems used to evaluate trophy animals and how that applied to the bull they harvested this past fall. Boulder Creek Outfitters gets a well-deserved update. We get into how snow and weather completely reshape hunting tactics in the backcountry, and Rob takes us through last year's elk season, with the kind of detail that puts you right there in the field with him. The second week of bow hunting sets up everything before the conversation arrives at a father and son hunt during the final days of archery season that becomes something far greater than a harvest. Rifle season, whitetail hunting, adapting tactics by region, and what it feels like to pursue game for leisure when guiding as your career, and a full year recap with look ahead to what is coming close things out. If you appreciate the outdoors and genuinely compelling stories, this one delivers on every level. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome back. Another beautiful episode. It's a wonderful Saturday morning. Sun is shining outside. It is 80 degrees here in Richmond at the beginning of April, and we are delighted to welcome back one of our favorite guests, the outdoorsman, the Idaho backcountry guide. I'd like to welcome back Rob. So we're going to get right into it. He's had a lot of experiences and some cool things to kind of share with us since last time he's been here. It's been too long. We've been trying to get together and finally made it happen. So appreciate you coming back, bro.
Oh, thanks for having me again, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what you been up to since we chatted last? I mean, it's been a couple months. I believe we chatted last year, probably a little bit later in the year, I think. I can't remember the exact time.
Yeah, last year we talked in July, so it was right after I got out of my spring bear season, and then we were kind of gearing up for our fall elk season, which turned out to be the craziest fall elk season I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
We ended up we pulled 7 bulls out of the backcountry, 3 myself, and then the other guide Sam, he got 3, and then one of our guides Chris, he got 1. But it was we took a record breaking bull last year that it was the largest archery bull that we've ever taken in 49 years of an outfit.
Wow. How
So
big? How large?
well, the final score for it ended up, so there's a Pope and Young scoring system for archery, and then for rifle it's Boone and Crockett, and like they have minimums that you have to hit. So like Pope and Young is, I believe, 270 inches of antler. The one that my client took ended up scoring 354.
Damn.
Yeah, and it was an absolute tank of a bull. It was the biggest elk I've ever seen in my life.
That's wild. Love it, dude. That's so exciting. So tell me a little bit more about the rating system, and then get into that fall elk season. And I know the winter has hit since then too. I'm not sure what you've been up to. I forget if we chatted around then, but yeah, so they do it by antler size and number of points, but does it have anything to do with like the weight or size of the animal itself, or is it all about the antler sizing?
It's really all about antler sizing. So like back in, I believe it was the late 1920s, early 1930s, something like that. The Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett score systems were created to kind of get America out of market hunting. Like we were very
Okay.
much so a market hunting society. So like people would just go shoot. That's why a dollar bill is called a buck, because a buck used to be worth a dollar.
Ah, I didn't
So
know that. That's a fun fact.
yeah,
Love
like a
something.
buckskin, and
Yeah.
uh they wanted us to shift out of it and become more, turn it more into like a trophy culture, where like, because big racks and big scores equate to mature animals that have had time to be able to breed, to mature into a quote unquote trophy animal. So what they do is uh what like when we got that bull last year, we green score it, which a green score is basically like we carry our tape measures around with us, and then you'll measure each individual time, You'll
Right.
measure the length of the overall beam, and then you measure. There's four different circumference measurements that you get on each antler, and then you measure the spread, and you add everything all together to get your final score.
Gotcha.
And most of the time, for a guide, you want to be within 5 inches of a final score when you do for it for someone. But then
Right.
there's a 60-day drying period. So in that 60 days, the antlers can shrink, not a tremendous amount, but they want it dried out. So then you can take it to an official Pope and Young score or an official Boone and Crockett score. And they will quote unquote officially score it with their score sheet, their tape, and everything. And it's people around. Like there's usually two per county that go around, and like if somebody gets one, you can contact them through email or phone, and they'll come out to your house, score it for you, and then depending on where it scores, if it is a Pope and Young entry, then it'll go into the all-time Pope and Young trophy records database. So
That's cool.
my client that shot the big one last year, he ended up out of it was I looked it up, it was like 13,000 some entries over the total, like the whole time that Pope and Young has been a thing. They've received
Right.
about 13,000 entries for elk that have scored Pope and Young. His ended up, and they give you a ranking. So his rank ended up being like 1786 all time.
Wow.
So
Top
it was a
10ish.
big bull.
Yeah, that's wild. So two notes on that. That would be such a fun job, I feel like, to just rate the racks. Like be that guy in the county that just drives out to people's houses. I feel like that would be a cool job, stellar job. And
Oh yeah.
two, I feel like that makes total sense. You don't want to compare apples to oranges. You got to wait till everyone's dried a specific length, and that makes sense. If
Hmm.
that's the average amount of days it takes for a rack like that to lose all of its moisture, then you're comparing, apples to apples. So makes sense to me. That's so cool. I knew there was some sort of rating system. Obviously, we've touched on it before, but yeah, man, that's so neat. And out of the last, what, 100, you said 1920, so the last 100 years, only 13,000 entries, and to be in the top 10%, that's pretty wild. I mean, that's witnessing history almost.
Oh, I told him, I was like, dude. Well, when he killed it, so I try and like lean people towards whether to get like the full head taxidermied or get a Euro
Right.
mount if it's not as big. And he had said something to me about, oh yeah, I think I'm just gonna get a Euro mount. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, I'm gonna tell you, you're never gonna see a bull this big again in your life in the wild. And if you do, you should buy a lottery ticket
Right.
because this is once in a lifetime. And he goes, so you really think I should get it taxidermy? And I was like, okay, I have no problem caping it out right now. I 100% think it. And even if you think now you should get it taxidermied, I'll still cape it out. That way you can take it home and ponder it for a little bit. And then he ended up deciding that he's going to get it fully taxidermied. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's something that's the experience of a lifetime. I feel like what you guys do out there, especially like what we had talked about last time, like the people in the market to do that adventure with you guys to go out there and do the trip. Those guys, that's what they're looking for, man. Like, and that's a huge selling point. The fact that you're able to bring those types of animals in, even see those types of animals, I feel like that's so rare. So, kudos to you and the team, and everything that goes into that. Man, I can't imagine it's like easy. Y'all just walk out there and happen upon these huge bulls, right? Like, obviously, it takes a lot of work prepping for everything, getting out there, and the whole trek, and not even preparing. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to know the right areas and what to do. Like, I'd be lost, man. So, yeah, I gotta come out there and just observe sometime, man. I don't know. I feel like I just don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to handle myself in that environment, but yeah, applaud you guys that do so. I'd do it
Appreciate it, man.
eventually. I don't know. Would love to try it, but
You ought to
such a
come
cool
out in
experience.
video sometime. That's what I always tell
Yes.
people. Come out and, we need a videographer to come out and actually, because we tell these stories and then people are like, there's no way it happened that way. And it's like, if I had a fly on the wall that could videotape what we're doing,
Yeah.
it like the stories that we tell, and I'll get into like the specifics of how that hunt went down, but it was it's something that I don't think I'll ever experience again in my life. And just the particular day that we got it, how we got into it, just it's it almost seems like a movie half the time
Yeah.
when you're on an elk and it works out the way that you wanted it to work out, and never in a million years did you think it was actually going to work out.
Right. Right. No, that's fantastic, dude. So I'll ask you, I want to get into Boulder Creek a little bit. I know we had talked about them towards the end of last episode. So can you kind of run down what's been happening there since we chatted last, how everything's going? I know we chatted about one of your buddies that you work alongside with, grew up in the same areas as we did, kind of
Hmm.
in childhood. So that was hilarious. But tell me a little bit more about what's going on there. And then, yeah, I'd love to get into kind of some particular hunts and stories of the year. But give me a baseline. I want you to have a chance to kind of, tell everybody about what's going on there. Anything new since we chatted last.
So with Boulder Creek last year, I know I had talked to you about that we were going to be doing fly-in camps last year.
Yes.
We ended up not doing a fly-in camp last year. We just do pack-in camps. But the week after I had talked to you, I ended up having to ride 33 miles into the backcountry
Woo.
to cut trail. So we were back there cutting trails that haven't seen a cross cut in 25, 30 years, and people just don't go back there. So we had our work cut out for us. We ended up, I think we cut 2,500 trees, all told, across the trail. So that was interesting. We spent 10 days back there getting everything kind of.
Bro, how's your how your biceps and shoulders feeling after that? I bet you're yoked, man.
Oh, by
That's probably hard
day
work.
three, I was ready to quit after day three. I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
we yeah, it was me, Sam, Keith, and Chris, one of our other guides. We all packed in together. Well, they packed in ahead of me. I had to ride in behind them by myself for 33 miles. So I was on a horseback for 11 hours, just kind of, I just looking around, I guess, not listening to music a little bit of the way. But once you start getting through your playlist, that's when you start
Right,
realizing I can't listen to the same song 20 times over.
right.
But after that, then we had a really successful elk season for our archery camps. Our rifle camps did pretty well. And then we had Cowboy Cerrone come out last year. He's in the UFC. He used to be in the UFC. He's one of the top UFCers,
I was
but
gonna say, I
he
feel like
came
I've
up
heard
from
that name.
Texas. Yeah, he's pretty renowned in UFC. He was one of the better fighters, but he retired a couple years. He ended up back in our ranches and hunting and got a pretty nice bull himself.
That's cool.
And then our whitetail season went off without a hitch. We did really well in whitetail. And then our lion season this past winter, it went pretty well overall. We had no snow out here for the winter, so it would be snow up until uh, maybe mid January was when we really started
Yeah.
getting a little bit of snow, and it would never lay, like it'd lay on the ground for a day or two, but it'd melt right off because the temperatures were so high. So we kind of had a weird winter out here, so our lion season was a little weird.
Yeah.
But everybody at Boulder Creek's been doing really good. We're all excited for this upcoming bear season, especially with no snow. The bears never really had a chance to go to sleep for the winter. So they've been up and moving around probably for the past 4 or 5 weeks now, and been able to put weight on. So, like I told you last episode, we're usually hunting starving bears coming out of their winter dens for hibernation,
Hmm.
and this year, it seems as though that's not going to be the case. Is that we're going to be hunting bears that they kept their winter fat. They're going to be bigger bears. They're going to be at higher elevations, so we're going to be able to push farther back, starting early, and really get into their neck of the woods. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm really excited for bear season. But Boulder Creek overall, everybody's been doing really good.
Love it. Love it. So, okay, two quick questions on the bear and the mountain lion. Since you said it didn't really snow, we've had weird weather on the East Coast here as well, as I'm sure you're well aware. But with there being no snow, does that affect their aggressiveness, their migration? Like, are you finding them in different locations? Are they reacting differently to maybe hunters being in the woods? Do they have to go elsewhere for food, if they're not finding specific stuff that they would during that time frame in this, certain climate? Like, how does that differ for a year that has less snow, such as this year? How do you guys react and plan accordingly, I guess?
Well, so basically, when it comes to the snow is usually a safeguard for them. So like the bears that are up in higher elevation, they're gonna stay in bed longer. So because the snow has trapped them in until that four,
Sure.
5, 6 feet of snow melt off around 6,500, 7,000 feet, they're gonna stay in their den, and you never really get like into June, you'll be able to get the big ones out. But a lot of the times, these big ones that hide in the rock bluffs that they just hole up and stick in one spot for 4 months at a time. Now it's going to kind of open up a whole new range for us because we're not going to be, I guess, hurt by the snow. It's going to help us, the fact that like there isn't any snow all the way up to high elevation. So all those bears are going to be constantly moving now, and they're going to be a lot more active than they usually would be on a regular snow year. So what they do in the spring is they really try and find green, just green grass. There's a certain type of grass called bear grass out here that really only bears will eat, and it's kind of like a slick green grass that, or greasy grass that, it doesn't have much protein. It doesn't really have much of anything to it, but bears like to munch on it for some reason. The mossy areas, the berries, the flowers, everything's going to start blooming earlier this year, so it kind of gives them more of their natural food source that they usually look towards the end of the spring to get, where now it'll be there in the beginning of the spring. So my plan is pretty much to there's one particular mountain that we haven't hunted as much because you can only get most of the time two baits onto it, and then when you get up into the higher elevation you start hitting snow like crazy. This year, that particular mountain, it's called Lone Knob, is a very good mountain for bears, especially for bear baiting. So I'm going to end up going up and over the mountain and hunting the backside of it, hunting the river side of it, hunting from all different angles to pull the bears that are now going to be awake. Whereas, in June, we don't really even get a chance to hunt that mountain. So if we can hunt it all through May, it should prove pretty successful for us, is what I'm hoping.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And yeah, I guess you have to react every year based on weather. It's not really like animals aren't just gonna like do the same thing every year. Obviously with the
Yeah.
changing weather patterns and everything that's going on. But enlighten me a little bit. I love it. I'm gonna keep asking questions. I hope you're cool with laying it out in layman's terms for me, of
Oh, yeah.
course. But
Oh, yeah.
it's always so interesting to know because obviously and I'm sure we chatted about this last time. I'm gonna keep saying that because obviously the pinnacle topic, the talking points, are gonna carry the conversation. But a lot of the meats I buy in the grocery store, right? They're not they're reacting at the same routine every day because they're in a little ass cage in the middle of like a huge warehouse, right? Being stressed out and just pumped with antibiotics and then just killed in 2 weeks or whatever the life cycle is for the chickens or cattle or whatever they have in there
Hmm.
nowadays. So it's so different when you're eating wild game or even hunting wild game, out there, they have a chance to react to natural habitat. And, I think we also talked about wolves last time and how the introduction of things like that can really change where animal populations end up living or moving to and things of that nature. But a lot of people have asked me about your episode in the meantime, over the course of the past, I guess, 8 months. And I always tell them that the thing that you told me was it's public land out there. We just know our way around, and I'm like, you're so humble about it because like my ass could never ever get out there and find my way around. I'm sure much more experienced hunters than myself probably couldn't do so. So it's such a cool thing that y'all do out there, and yeah, I'm gonna get a video camera and be out there at some point soon. But yeah, let's lay out elk season. Maybe talk about some other stuff first, and then we can get onto that big story about the what is it, 1,756 largest antlers in the
Open
world.
me
I
up.
guess the United States.
Oh yeah.
It is worldwide, I guess. But
So our elk season, and I didn't get to answer your question, but the mountain lions with the snow, they
oh,
mountain lions don't really, if it's not snowing, they're laying down. So they won't be as active. They won't be as active hunting because they don't have to conserve a ton of energy.
sure,
They can just lay out after they've gotten a kill, and if it's sunny, they won't have to use a ton of energy basically to stay alive. They can just sun out on a rock and not have to worry about getting cold, about like the freezing temperatures and getting wet. So with the mountain lion season, that's why it was kind of an off year for us just because they weren't moving. And if they're not moving, you kind of have to go in and flush them out with dogs and kind of get lucky on finding a drainage that a mountain lion
sure,
happens to be in. But they
sure.
our guys did pretty well on dry ground this year. It wasn't too bad.
Love
But
it. Love
for elk season, uh we did our normal pack in camps, and I was with one of my good buddies, Brandon, in our pack in camp. It was called Pass Creek. And the one thing that I really loved about this year is I got to kind of go back to my roots of where I started. So the first wilderness camp that I ever worked was Pass Creek Camp, and it was as soon as I got out of guide school, I came from Montana and went straight into guide or to working in this camp and then guiding in this camp the second week. And a lot of the things that I had learned from my first year, I hadn't been able to use in the other camps because I was hunting brand new country almost every year. So
Sure.
going back to it in 2025, it was nice because I felt familiar. I felt, that I knew where the elk were going to be. We got the trails cut that we needed to get cut. We got spots opened up that even so Brandon and I had went up and we were cutting out a trail, and as we're cutting out a trail, we stopped and we could hear elk crashing below us in the woods running through. And I told him, I was like, dude, we're gonna take some elk from up here this year. This is gonna be a good year for us.
This is the spot.
But the first week we did pretty well. We ended up not pulling any bulls out of our camp the first week. We got into elk. Brandon's one client had a bull at 29 yards that now they called it a drop tine bull, which a drop tine bull is like if antlers come out, there's a separate tine that'll instead of going up, it drops off the side. So they'll usually call it a kicker, a drop tine. That's a very rare thing to see in elk. You don't really see many of them with a drop tine coming off. And his clients were very excited about that. But then I had a set, like it was four buddies that all came together. And I had the other set of clients, and we happened to be up in the drainage called Gold Creek, and we were calling down into it, and all of a sudden I had a bull respond, and we took off after it, and we ended up having this herd come in to it was two bulls and three cows with two calves with them,
Uh-huh.
and they ended up coming into 60 yards, and we could see them behind the tree line in front of us, but we were on a very steep face coming down where a rock point kind of jutted out,
Uh-huh.
and our wind was getting screwy because it was later in the day. And I told them, because this bull was at the bottom of the drainage to start with, and they had moved, unbeknownst to us, they came right at us, and I didn't know this was going to happen. So I told them to just get ready, and we kind of held the high ground on our little rock point. And these elk ended up swooping right underneath us, and the one bull was just bugling the whole way through. We could see antler tips going
Yeah.
through, but we could never make out a clear shot.
Damn.
So that was at towards the end of our first week, and that kind of got me amped up for the second week. So we had a hot spot, and I don't want to leave the other camp out of this. The other camp that first week, they shot a bull the second day with a bow. And then the third day, they got another bull. One of the other clients got another bull. And then on the fifth day of the hunt, they ended up arrowing a third bull and losing it.
Oh,
So they had gotten into some elk at the other camp. So, and it's
Sure.
usually that's how it works is one camp will get into elk one week and the other camp will get into elk the next week. It just kind of depends on your elevation and what different factors, because we were about spaced out by 8, 9 miles is how far we were hunting away from each other.
Gotcha.
Um, but the second week turned out fruitful for me. Uh, we got up there to our camp the first day on the pack-in day, and
Same
it,
spot.
yeah, yeah. And it was a beautiful day. Like, and so it was funny. We had two guys that were from Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, that were
Know
in our
that.
hunting group. Yeah. It was a father and son from Elizabethtown, and then a husband and wife from Haley, Idaho. And I ended up taking out the husband and wife, and Brandon, the other guide, and I had coordinated that I was going to go up and hunt the mountain that he had been hammering pretty hard the week before, and we talked about it, and I had the first 2 days up there that I was going to hunt. So I was like, all right, we woke up on the first day of hunting, and at 3:30 in the morning, it is an absolute downpour of rain. I mean, just dumping cats and dogs on us.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
none of these clients were very experienced in horseback anything, and the trail that we were going to be going up on was a little there's some rock spots in it that you're climbing up over rocks on animals, and if it gets slick, it's not the safest thing in the world.
Sure.
So I had said to me and Brandon came to the conclusion that we were going to wait until close to daylight to take off, and hopefully the rain would have lightened out by then. Well, right around 6:30, the rain started lightening up. So I grabbed my clients and I said, "We're going to ride up." We got and we had to ride about 2 hours to get up to our
Mhm.
hunting spot. So I grabbed the husband and wife. We took off, and the whole way up there, it just started pouring on us again. But at least we could see where we were riding, so it wasn't too bad. They just didn't want to ride in the dark on
Yeah.
slick rocks. So we got up to where we're going, and as we're climbing up, it was kind of cool. There were some deer moving through, so I could tell the animals were out and about. And I took them as far like to the very top end point of the mountain. It's the highest point on the mountain. And we got there, and I turned around and the wife was about in tears. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "My knees are hurting me so badly. I don't think I can walk." And I was like, all right, everything's gonna be okay. It was like 8:15 in the morning, so I hopped
Right.
them off of their horses, tied their horses up, and I told them I was like, "You guys can just take a seat for like 10 minutes, let your legs get back to you, and then once you're ready, we'll walk over." And we weren't even walking 75 yards to where I was gonna let my first call go, and
Sure.
they finally they got their legs together, and the husband, he was gung ho, he was ready to kill a bull, and we walked over to the edge of this drainage that was down below me, and I ripped a bugle out, and within, I mean, 5 seconds, I had a bull response. And this is 15
Beautiful.
minutes after we got off of the horses.
Right.
So I kind of looked at them and I'm like, all right, guys, well, and I always like to play a game with my clients as to, where do you think you heard that bugle from? And they both pointed at the opposite ridge, which was way farther away than that bull actually was. The bull was right below us, 200 yards straight below us. And I started laughing and they go, "What's so funny?" I'm like, "That bull is a lot closer than you guys think." And I ripped a cow call, and he let off another response. He was 100 yards closer to us. So he was already coming into us. And I told them, I said, "We have to move right now. Like, we don't have an opportunity to think about this. We have to get to a spot where our wind is to our advantage, and this elk is going to meet us halfway."
Right.
So
So you can
we
smell you.
start Oh yeah. So we start climbing down the hill, and Tyler, when I tell you we only went 75 yards, I mean
Yeah.
we hiked maybe 75 yards. And as we're getting down, I rip another cow call, and this bull pipes off again. And he's within 200 yards of us coming right. He's probably within 150 yards of us coming right up the hill. And I checked my wind, and my wind was pulling across me over to my right shoulder. And I told the husband, I was like, "Hey, I need you to," because we were right on the spine of the ridge. And I knew
Okay.
this elk, what they like to do is they like to circle and they like to get upwind of you so they can smell you before they see you. So I told the hunter, I was like, you need to go down and to my right about 30 yards, pick a tree and set up by it. And he goes, okay, I can do that. So he took off. Well, as we were hiking down, I didn't realize the wife went ass over tea kettle behind me with an arrow knocked on her bow. So the husband's freaking out because he thinks his wife just stabbed herself with an arrow. I didn't know any of this was going on because I'm focused on the elk that's coming up in
Right.
front of us. And he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I turn around, I'm like, "What is going on?" And I grabbed the husband. I was like, "We don't have time for this." I looked at the wife and we're like, "Are you okay?" She says, "Yes." I go, "You got to go." And I told the husband to take off. He went over and I told the wife, I was like, "We don't have time for you to get set up. We just need to sit down and wait for this to happen." So I sat down and I posted this video on my Instagram, but I ripped a bugle off and the elk didn't respond. So I waited about 15 seconds and I ripped a cow call. And this bull was 30 yards from us and just screamed in our face. And I kind of like, I sat there and in the video, you hear me go, "Oh
Yeah.
shit." And uh, I knew where he was going to be coming in, so I pulled my phone up to take a video. And the bull walked, I mean, dead center right to the husband. And he was still walking when the husband let the arrow go.
Right.
14 yards was what he ended up shooting this bull at.
Wow.
And the bull ended up, he got hit, and the bull kind of stopped and like looked around. He didn't know what happened. So he stopped, turned, ran right in front of me and the wife, and went another 30 yards to our left. And as he's running by, I'm cow calling at him. He ends up turning around and coming back into my cow call. And he wasn't 20 yards from us. And all of a sudden, I see his antlers start swaying and he tips right over in front of us.
Falls over.
And
Wow.
I could, dude, I sat there and I was like, that couldn't have, that was out of a book. Like that couldn't
Excellent.
have went any wetter, yeah,
Right,
any
right,
better.
right.
But and it's
So look
pouring
good.
down rain on us still. Like it was one of those days where like it just all came together perfectly. Even though you were soaking wet, miserable, it was a perfect day in the elk woods for that elk to just be walking around looking for some strange to
Right.
find. And he tried to find it and he ended up finding the other end of an arrow. But
Yep.
and then we went down to that bull and he ended up he was the biggest bodied bull I have ever seen. I mean, they got
Huge.
350 pounds of meat off of him.
Holy shit, big boy.
But
Dang.
it was that hunter's first elk, and we weren't from where we killed it to where we had to pack it to. We were only 120 yards from the horses, right at the top. So,
Yeah.
we skinned it out and we hiked it up on our backs, just right up to a little flat spot right at the top of the mountain. Packed him out, and that was an experience that I will never forget. That was just it was cool, and I ended up getting it on video, which that
Yeah.
almost never happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a
Dude,
really fun one.
what do you do? What do you do in that circumstance? You said, what was that? You like your second day there, your third day there? I'd be like, bro, I don't even know if I need to do anything the rest of the week. I'm like,
Dude, that was the
that's like
first morning.
the first morning. That's what I'm saying. That's like the pinnacle. What do you do after that?
Well, I told them, like, I asked them, I was like, "Do you guys still want to hunt?" Because the wife was there more for not a vacation, but she was more there for the experience than anything.
Right.
And they had gotten the experience within the first 15 minutes of hunting the first morning.
Right.
So, I ended up packing the bull out of camp by myself. I took it to the butcher shop, and they wanted their meat done for. They lived a couple hours away, so they didn't really care too much about the meat being done that week. They said they would just drive up and pick it up. But
Right.
I ended up taking the wife out for 2 days. I think we hunted, and it was really where we were going was really hard on her knees. She had a couple knee problems, so
Hmm.
I didn't want to kill her. That was the thing. Like I didn't want to push her into the ground and like make a trip that had already gone so well turn sour because of an injury
Right.
or because of,
Sure.
being miserable or anything. So, um there's some hot springs that are near where we hunt. So one of the days we went hunting and we called it a little early and came down and we just soaked in the hot springs for a couple
Nice.
hours, hanging out, talking, meeting some new people, telling the story of the elk and everything and how we got it. But yeah, they had a stellar hunt. And I actually just recently went out to dinner with them. They live not too far from where I live in Idaho, so they came driving down and they were like, "How about you come eat?" Well, it was when the Seahawks played the 49ers. They
Yeah,
asked me, they were
so
like, "Why don't you come watch the game with us?" So I went out and had dinner with them, and we had a really
that's
good
cool.
time. Got to tell the story and everything, but yeah, they ended up packing out a day early and calling the hunt a day early. But they had a great experience, and they told me that they text me constantly just to see how I'm doing, and we catch up on the hunt and any videos that I may have kept from them. They keep asking me, they're like, "Can you whatever you have from that hunt, just make sure you send it to us." And I always forget, and then end up hearing back from them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, it's a sense of community. You connect through things of that nature, though. And so, yeah, awesome, awesome story. I'm sure even better experience. I can't imagine what that what that was like. Dude, you got to get like one of the GoPros and like a huge like SD card.
you want to
You
know what
have
I
to.
got this year?
What'd you get?
So my mom for Christmas bought me the Ray-Ban Metas.
Yeah,
Those are going to come in handy this year because I even thought like I wear sunglasses almost 100% of the time when I'm hunting because I don't
sure.
like it. I don't like my whole face being shown, so that's why I constantly keep the beard so I blend in a little bit. But with sunglasses, it helps because then they can't catch your eyes. Like a lot of the times, they'll say if you're deer hunting or if you're whatever hunting, you never want to make direct eye contact with an animal because that's the one thing they will pick out on you is your eyes.
Really?
If they can see your eyes, they know you are a predator because we have front facing eyes. They have side facing eyes. So if they
Ah,
pick you out, they know something's up and we need to they get the hell out of Dodge. They don't want to be anywhere near you.
right.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get some really cool video. If I had had my Ray-Ban Metas on last year for the next story that I'm going to tell you for the second elk that I got, it would have been the. I mean, I wish I had a camera crew with me for the one that I
Yeah.
got the last week, but
Yeah, we got it. We
that
definitely gotta do something like that. Something else I would like to do is if you get enough footage over the next like year, we could sit down, bro. It'd be awesome if you could make it here, sit you in front of a microphone, and you could literally narrate, and I could edit it all together, and it'd be like a little like mini documentary series thing. Make it
that
like a
would
10
be
minute.
cool.
Wouldn't that be neat? I feel like
That
that
would
would
be
be fun.
very cool.
Yeah. Because I hear all of your stories here and I see like on your Instagram, which I will tag, of course, again, we'll plug all Rob's shit. So everybody that
Appreciate you.
loves him and all the stuff that he does, they can go check that out more. But like it would be so fun to see them together because it's more than just what the video tells, and the video can tell different things than what you can kind of articulate from that, if that makes any sense. So I think putting
Oh
those two
yeah.
media together would be so cool.
Oh yeah. It would be very cool, and I will try and get back to Pennsylvania and down to Richmond to see you because that would.
We can make something happen regardless. I'll freaking let you borrow. I've got an extra microphone or something, or I can like there's some cheap ones that you can get. We'll do something because you need there's some nice condenser microphones you get for like 40, $50, and then that would give it a we could submit it to like all the Sundance film festivals and win the best
Oh
award,
heck yeah.
and then the Slanted Attic, we're making mega ad revenue, and then I, don't have to claim losses on my taxes. Anyways, back to the fantastic hunting events. But yes, we gotta make that happen. I'll start working on like some sort of outline or something that we can. I'll put your eyes on and do
Sounds
something.
good to
But
me.
back
Well, I
to
gotta tell you,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I gotta tell you about the third week of elk
Yes,
season because
that's what I was gonna say.
there was something that happened that week that was very very personal to me that I never would have expected, and I always love to say God works in funny ways, and I've watched miracles happen in front of me, and this was one of those miracles. So
I believe it.
the third week I had a father and son that their last names are, and the son's name was Ryan. And how it all worked out, usually we only have 4 people per pack-in camp, so 2 guides and 4 clients. Well, this
Right.
particular group has been hunting with us for a long, long time. Um, they originally started hunting with us back in the 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, wow.
And these guys, they're very cool group, but as they've gotten older, they've added more friends into their hunting group, and it
Sure.
ended up being a group of 6 guys that were coming for us. So those 6 guys we had to all put in one camp together. And the what I ended up having to doing was, because I had experience in both camps and the other guide Brandon did not, they ended up sending me to what's called horse camp, our other pack-in camp, where the guides Sam and Keith were as well. So Brandon had to hunt with 2 hunters by himself. So he had all of our territory to kind of go hunt for himself wherever he wanted to go. And then I I joined Keith and Sam. Well, when I got over there, the youngest guy, Ryan, he's a marathon runner and he's same age as me. He's 26. So
A marathon.
we we kind of hit it off right away, like shooting the bull, and I figured I was going to take him and his dad out, which is what ended up happening. So we got into camp, and that first day we went out, we really didn't get into much. I took him to a spot called Cliff Creek, where it's real pretty out there. It's a long winding drainage that has giant meadows on both sides, and it's just a cool spot to start. I've gotten into elk back there. I've seen plenty of elk sign. We ended up not getting into anything the first day. And this is the last week of archery season, mind you. So most of the time the bulls are pretty amped up, and it can be hit or miss because a lot of the times it'll get warm towards the end of September, which is kind of weird. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So we go out to Cliff Creek the first day, don't get into anything. We go out to Long Lake the second day, and I found a fresh set of bull tracks and everything, but nothing wanted to talk. Nothing really was responding. I wasn't finding any like specifically fresh sign that I could work off of. So on the third day, I had asked my buddy Sam that works there. I was like, "Has anybody hunted Surprise Creek?" Which Surprise Creek, the big surprise about Surprise Creek is there's no elk. It's the elkiest place you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
Beautiful, giant green, yellow. It looks like Yellowstone. I mean, it just is beautiful, giant green meadows with this fresh, lush grass that you would think animals would be everywhere in there. And
Right.
I've never even seen an elk track in there, much less any elk sign. So what my plan was we were going to ride out this trail. It takes about 3 hours to get through the whole trail, and you climb up
Right.
and you get to some beautiful high mountain lakes. And the plan was to eat lunch up there and then kind of hunt our way around, and we were going to ride a separate trail coming back called Greenside Butte Trail and call into some of those drainages and see how it went. Well, that morning we took off at about 4:30 and we got out to so Cliff Creek is a trail that splits off of Surprise Creek. So I was just riding past where we had hunted the first day and I was just going to continue.
Sure.
As we're riding, now, I like to ride a mule because for me, elk, a lot of the times when they hear a mule walking, it simulates an elk walking a lot better than a horse does. Because a
Okay.
horse, you hear their metal shoes banging off of rocks and you hear the clop clop. Whereas a
Right.
mule, they don't have shoes. So there's
I
no
didn't realize
metal on rock.
they didn't wear shoes. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, we don't put shoes on our mules. It's so rocky out there that it actually will trim their hooves for them. Just walking over the rocks, it'll flatten them out for
Oh.
them.
Yeah.
So we get out. Probably it was right around like quarter after 6 in the morning, 6:30, and I let a bugle go off of my mule, and I thought I could have sworn I heard a bugle. So I stopped everybody, and I kind of sat there for a minute and I ripped a cow call. And this time I heard clear as day a bugle up on the ridge, like 700 yards above us.
Right.
And I kind of looked at him and I was like, oh, because I was surprised myself. I wasn't, expecting, I was hoping, I wasn't expecting an elk to be up there. So We tied up our animals real quick. We ran up onto there was a rocky spine that came down with a little bit of a vantage point. So I sat up there with them for a minute and I didn't know where this elk was on the hillside. So I just needed to pretty much gather a little bit more intel to figure out like which way would be the proper way to approach this elk.
Right.
And I called at him again, and this time he chuckled at me. So chuckling is when they'll make a noise like like, and a lot of the times if they're just straight chuckling, they want you to come to them. They're basically saying, "Hey, I'm up here. I'm not coming to you. I want you to
Okay.
come to me." If they're screaming at you, that's when you can kind of get them to play the game of, well, you'll get closer, I'll get closer, we'll meet each other in the middle, or you're going to come to me. But because I was so far down at the bottom of the hill, he had the high ground on me, so he wasn't going to leave that spot.
I see.
So I said to the son and the dad, I was like, we're going to be rock climbing to get up to this elk. I mean, it was straight up and down. Like we were literally, if we had fallen, we would have fallen down to the bottom. I mean,
Yeah.
it was steep. So we start working our way up through, and I get to where the drainage comes down to where he's at the top, and I call, and he chuckles at me again, and all of a sudden this elk comes walking out at like 400 yards above us, and I didn't have my binoculars on me, so I asked the kid, I was like, "Can I take your rangefinder real quick?" And I look through his rangefinder, and I see this giant rack on this elk. And I kind of stopped and was like, okay, this is this is a problem because I started now realizing like the severity of the situation of how big of an animal this was. And for us in the backcountry of the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness to get in a bull that big it's probably less than once in a lifetime to see an animal that big. So I told them, I was like, guys, we have to kill this elk. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have to. And they were gung ho to follow me up. So we started climbing. And the dad was in his later 50s, maybe early 60s. I think it was his later 50s, but I
Sure.
wasn't sure he was going to be able to keep up with me and his marathon running son.
Yeah.
And
The
every
marathon.
time, oh, dude, every time I turned around, his face may have been as red as a fire truck. I could hear his heart beating from 10 yards, but he was on our ass.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
he
he's
was
ready.
like, I'm not letting you guys get in front of me. I'm going to be there when this happens. So we kept meandering our way up through and work. I got up to a point where there was a tree that had fallen that literally all routes were blocked. We couldn't because it was just a straight up and down cliffside to the one side of this tree. It was
Hmm.
so thick on the other side we couldn't get through. So we had to climb, and I mean it's a giant old cedar tree that is probably 15 to 20 feet around, and we had to
Sure.
climb over the top of it and then like kind of work our way through the branches. And these guys have bows, so they're
Oh yeah.
worried about their strings getting caught up, like strings getting snapped, the sights getting hit off of stuff. And I told them, I was like, we have to do this. There's no other way to get through. So we got through, and I find this nice little flat spot that well, I had called and the elk responded, and I realized we were within 200 yards of him, so we were getting close. And we climb through and it goes flat for about 100 yards, and as we're walking through I find a big muddy wallow that had a bunch of tracks through it, so I was like, this could be a herd up here. I don't There could be multiple bulls, there could be cows with him, I don't really know.
Sure.
So we come through and there's this plant called alderbrush, which alderbrush is like buck laurel, if you know what buck laurel is in Pennsylvania.
Not
uh
familiar.
it's mountain laurel it's the state plant or
Yes, yes,
whatever
yes.
of, yeah. So it's like that
Got it.
viney
Got it.
crap that deer will bed
Yeah.
underneath. Will multiply buck laurel in thickness and height by about four, and this is
Uh,
what alderbrush is. Like, it's these thick viney plants that branch out from the main bush, and they're
mhm.
ankle grabbers and they're very thick to get through. And we had probably 50 yards of alderbrush that we had to push through to get to the edge
Ah,
of it where this elk was. So we start picking our way through it and we pop out, and it's like not wide open meadow, but it was tall grassy up to a rock face and then another flat on top of it. And when we get there, I'm looking for the elk, and I cow call, and all of a sudden I see movement up above us, and it's a cow elk coming walking across. And I'm like, okay, he's got a cow with him. That's pretty good. So we're sitting there, and I look in front of, or my client bumps me and he goes, Robert, what is that? And I look in front of us, and below, like on the flat that we're on, there's a sow bear, a black bear, and a bear cub, and they're standing up, kind of like looking around, like, what the heck is going on? And they're directly in between me and this bull. So
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting there like these bears are gonna blow our hunt. They're gonna spook the
Oh,
animal
no.
right out from us.
Yeah.
So it was cool, we got to see these bears and we're looking at them, and then all of a sudden I hear up above us on the hill, and this bull, I posted this video like 10 times on my Instagram, but this elk comes just walking out into the meadow like broadside from us at like 150 yards. And I'm just sitting there and this is the first time that I got a really good look at it, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, that is 100% a trophy size bull. Like that's one. And I as soon as he walked out, I started shaking. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this
Excited, yeah.
might
Jitters.
be, well, this is my career. And
Right.
like I literally looked at this bull and I'm like, this is my career right here. Like if I can kill this bull, I can cement myself as like I know what I'm doing. I'm not, some just guy walking around the woods hoping for luck to strike. I at least know what I'm doing. And I knew how he was going to come down. It was going to be almost impossible for us to kill him. So the sun is at our backs and we're still sitting in shade, but this
What
bull
what
is out
time
in
is
the
this?
wide open sun. This is
What
about
time is it?
7:15, 7:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you
It had
spent
taken about an
probably what
hour.
I was gonna say a few hours probably hiking up to that spot, and it's 7:15. Oh my god. Okay, okay. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh,
So
you're all
sun's
good.
at
You're
your
all
back,
good.
you're in the
But
shade.
well, this is the time of day that, like, if you get out there first thing in the morning, the wind is going to be pulling down towards the creek. But right around 7:45, 8 o'clock is when the wind switches because the sun comes up and the wind
Mhm.
starts pulling straight up the hill. So that's what I'm worrying about. I'm sitting there kind of hoping, I'm like, oh, and I'm checking the wind every 10 seconds. And luckily, because we're sitting in a
Do
shaded
you
area,
do you have like a device that checks the wind, or how do you do that? Just
it's
knowledge?
basically it's chalk powder in a bottle,
Okay. Okay.
and I can't even think of what they call it, but pretty much you just throw a squirt of chalk powder in the air and see which way the wind's blowing and kind of calculate off of that. But
Gotcha.
I'm sitting there throwing chalk in the air like every 10 seconds, and my client's laughing at me
I
because I'm
believe
panicking. I'm in full on panic. And he's like, "What's going on?" I said, "If that sun comes up any higher, this hunt is blown. Like if that sun starts hitting us in the back, the whole hunt's blown because he's gonna smell us before he ever even comes down to us." So the cow elk ends up walking across in front of us, and she gets over to, now it's almost like a switchback because I could see the elk trail and where they were aiming. And when the cow gets to the switchback, I don't know if she saw the bears or if she saw us or what happened. She took off running.
Mhm.
So I kind of like sat there and I'm like, okay, is this bull going to do the same thing? Well, the bull continues walking across and he gets right to where that cow elk was. And instead of following her, he switches his direction and comes right down onto our flat.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I cannot believe this is working. Like that just kept going through my head. I'm like, this is working out for us
Right.
in our favor right now.
Right.
So I'm out calling at him. Well, the bull comes walking down off the rocks and he gets within about 90 yards of us. And I didn't have my rangefinder on me, so the kid that I was hunting with, he handed me his rangefinder, and I was in charge of. I'm and most of the time for an elk setup scenario, I'm not standing shoulder to shoulder with my client. I'm 30, 40, 50 yards away waiting for the elk to come in so they can shoot. Well, all
Right.
three of us, me, the father, and the son, are all just standing in a line, like kneeling down, watching for when this elk comes by. So the elk comes down, and there's another alderbrush packet, like alderbrush thicket that's real small right in front of us. And the bull comes walking in, and I range him, and he's at 82 yards. And I'm like, okay, we can't shoot him at 82, especially with a bow. That's way too far. And the kid agreed. He's like, I can't shoot 82. So the bull walks into this little alderbrush thicket, and for 15 minutes straight, Tyler, he is in there raking these trees. So he's just throwing his head back,
Yeah, yeah,
rubbing
yeah.
up, and all you see are flashes of antler coming out. He's not making a noise other than ripping this tree apart. And I'm cow calling at him, I'm squealing at him, and he's not responding. So he's just worried about tearing this tree apart. And I'm worried that as soon as he, loses interest in the tree, he's going to lose interest in me too and just walk right back out the way he came.
Right.
And like, if you want to talk about, like, how in movies they'll lead up to like a dramatic cliffhanger event and like you're sitting on
Absolutely.
the edge of your seat. So imagine sitting on the edge of your seat watching this bull less than 100 yards from you for 15 minutes
Oh
just
yeah.
rip a tree apart. And the whole time you're just trying to calm yourself down and you can't because you know that the opportunity's coming, but you have to wait for it. That's the
Yep.
whole
Might
point.
leave just as
Like,
quick as it came. Oh,
that's
absolutely.
yeah. And I'm just sitting there and I mean, like, I couldn't even talk to the kid. I'm shaking that badly. And I got a video of him raking the tree and I'm trying to whisper back and forth with him a little bit, just be like, okay, when I tell you to draw, you got to draw. And he goes, okay. So the bull finishes raking the tree and comes walking around the corner that, like, in front of us there was a little pine tree right on the edge of and a rock right on the edge of this thicket. Well, he comes walking out, and as soon I thought he was going to continue going up the hill, he turns to us directly and starts walking straight at us. And I'm
That's true.
kind of just like not trying to move and just sitting there like, you got to be joking right now. And I
Right.
made a mistake that I will never make again, but it's a mistake that I had to make. So,
Interesting.
what you never do is when an elk is walking straight at you in a wide open meadow, you do not call at them because they're instantly going to pinpoint where that call came from and
Right.
look and be like, where is the elk that just made that call? Well, as he's walking to us, for some reason, I rip a cow call and he just stops and kind of like puts his head up and he's looking and I can see him kind of like looking around trying to figure out where the cow call came from. And I had the rangefinder up to my eye and I call out, I'm like 64 and the kid's drawn, he's fully drawn back.
He's
And I go
ready.
64 yards. He's at 64, 64. And I look at the kid and I go, can you hit a 64-yard shot? And he goes, I've been practicing at 70 all summer. And I said, let her rip, and he lets that arrow go, dude. And most of the time, an elk will jump the string, meaning that when you let it, they hear the speed of sound gets to them faster than that arrow, so they know
Yes.
something just happened, and they'll jump. They'll do something
Right.
weird. They'll move to the side, drop their back. This
Whatever.
elk just stood there, and I watched the flight of this arrow come up and drop. I mean, dead center, left to right, dead center, perfectly into his chest. And I kind of like, if my jaw could have disconnected from my mouth, it would have
Right.
been on the floor. Because I was, and I wished I would have got it on video, dude, because it's one of
Yeah.
those like in person to just watch that arrow go up and up and up and up and then just perfectly come down. It was unbelievable in every way,
Because
shape, and form.
that's a couple seconds too. That's not like it's not like a gunshot or a rifle. Like that's
Dude, it
almost
was a
instantaneous. That's a few seconds.
solid second and a half, 2 seconds of that arrow being in flight. So
Right.
that's where like a lot of things can go wrong in that second and a half, 2 seconds. But
Hmm.
the arrow dropped in and it sounded like a perfect hit. And I'm watching and this bull takes off and we all just kind of just, you know, watch it go off. And I looked at the kid and none of us said anything for a solid 2 minutes. Like we just all
Yeah.
kind of looked at each other. And I went, dude, I think he smoked him. And he goes, are you sure? And I went, oh, from what I was watching, that you were dead center, left to right, put that right in the money. And he goes, I
Right.
feel like I shot a little low. And I go, you didn't shoot low. I was like, I promise you didn't shoot low. So now we're sitting there, and this bull had taken off to my left and goes up about 200 yards. And we're sitting there being real quiet because I wanted to give it probably 45 minutes, an hour until we started blood trailing, just to, if he had not hit it correctly, for it give it time to die. Well, like 15 minutes went by, and I hear a meow, Like it's called barking. It's something that a bull will do. But what I didn't realize is it was the bull dying when he had done this. Um, and there was like a gurgle noise at the end of it. And I even thought, I'm like, he had to have hit him right in the chest and taken out. Like his lungs were filling up with blood, is what was happening.
Right, right, right.
So I kind of sat there and I started getting real shaky because I was like, I hope we hit that bull right. And then I start like that's when in that hour you second guess everything.
Oh,
Everything is now up in the air. You're like, I watch that arrow go perfectly in, or am I just was that a figment of my imagination? So
oh yeah.
um we ended
All
up
you have,
we
all
waited
you
an
have,
hour.
all you have to do is time to think, man. Like all you have,
That's
like the only thing you probably can do is think about it. You probably
that's
can't do
it.
yeah anything else. Yeah.
Uh, and I couldn't help myself. Like after 15 minutes, I'm like, let's go. And then I realized I'm like, hold on a second. All right, we can't just go after it. We gotta wait. And I was
Right.
glad that we waited, but we sat back down, and I knew the exact route this bull took off, so I wasn't even worried about where he shot it. I was worried about hitting the blood trail, like just kind of catching it on the way out because I knew where he hit it, there was not going to be any blood. Like it,
Mhm.
in the spot. If you had hit it with a rifle, different story. With a bow, it takes them a second to start bleeding. So we
Sure.
walk up and we spend 5 minutes looking for blood and can't find any blood. And I kind of
Probably
started
freaking
really
out.
second guessing. Oh yeah. And all of a
You're
sudden,
like,
I hear the
oh, it's
dad go, "Oh yeah." I was like, we didn't hit him. We had to, even though I watched the arrow impact him, I immediately
right,
was
right,
like, we
right.
didn't hit him. So the dad ended up finding blood, and when I started following the blood trail, it was a good blood trail, and I was like, okay, this is really good. And we start walking, and the obstacles that this bull went through to get away from us was it made me rethink everything that I know about elk because I was watching him jump over trees that were 5 feet tall and like you'd see where he was just bleeding out on the tree, but he was going through such thick stuff to get over and around us. And I realized truthfully how much power these elk have and how far they can run with something going on. And
Sure.
we're walking, and all of a sudden I hear crashing in front of me. And I stop, I turn around, I tell the kid to knock an arrow. I pull my pistol out because I'm like, if I walk up on a wounded elk, I'm just gonna put it out. And uh as we're walking so I found a little creek that the elk had crossed, and a lot of times when elk are wounded like that, they'll go to water, and you could see he had stopped at the creek and tried to drink water. So I was like, maybe this elk isn't hurt as bad as I think it is, which is a huge problem, but we're gonna find out anyway. So we
Right.
continue walking. Well, we're in such thick stuff, Tyler, that like I'm looking straight at the ground following the blood trail. I'm not looking at my surroundings. So as I'm walking, all of a sudden the blood trail disappears. And I stop and I start looking around. I'm like looking at the bottom underneath branches and stuff, trying to find blood. And
Right.
unbeknownst to me, this bull was I could have reached out and grabbed his antler, how close I was standing to this elk, but I couldn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid goes, Robert, he's right there. And I turned and looked, and all I saw was this giant bull.
Huge.
And I kind of just stopped and like I just marveled at it because I was like, this is literally this could be the biggest bull I've ever guided for, and or I will ever guide for in my life. In public land in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, where the elk herd was decimated by wolves, like this is a true monster of a bull, and we take pictures and everything with it. And now I had said at the beginning of the story why this was very personal to me, and I didn't realize what day it was. So and how God works in funny ways. So my older brother, Justin, passed away on September 25th of 2024. While I was in a backcountry camp in the wilderness. So I had to go home for his funeral and everything. And the other thing about September 25th in general is that is my younger brother Ryan's birthday. So I when you're in the woods, you don't like I knew it was day 3 of a 6-day hunt. I
Mhm.
didn't know the date. Well, I'm sitting there cutting up this bowl, and I get an inReach, and I started sending inReach messages out to everybody, letting them know, hey, I got a
Of course.
giant bowl down. And my mom messaged me on my inReach, and she goes, "Did you wish your brother Ryan a happy birthday?" And dude, when I tell you, I started bawling like a baby because like all the emotion at the same time came
Yeah.
over me. Like the day that it was my brother's mourning with his death, that I was in the woods for my younger brother Ryan's birthday, and that this had just occurred on this day. And
Yeah,
like
man.
I talked to my pastor at my church about it, and he goes, God has a way of putting sunshine on a dark spot in your life. And that is truly how it felt, because that was a day for me that, like, I missed my older brother. Like, he was 13 years older than me,
Absolutely.
and he was a giant outdoorsman. But I started realizing, I was like, this wasn't me that did this today. This was my brother looking down, trying to shine a light on the day he had
Mhm.
passed. And then I looked at it too, and I thought it was hilarious because my client's name was Ryan that had taken this bull.
Yeah, you did mention that.
So
Wow.
I kind of like, I realized, I was like, God gave me, I couldn't spend my brother's birthday with my younger brother Ryan, so he gave me another Ryan to go
Yep.
out and harvest this bull. And dude,
Wow.
like the whole way back to camp, I was in tears because I was like, I just don't understand how all of this could happen on that particular day at that particular time. And
Yep.
it was just overwhelming emotion. And even now, like, it makes me want to tear up because it was just everything came together so perfectly that without God being there and my brother looking down on me and just everything, I don't think it would have happened. And it happened in a place, like I told you, the surprise about Surprise Creek is there's no elk.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was,
man.
I got a
Wow.
brand new surprise that day.
Absolutely. Wow. Everything happens for a reason. It's funny how dates like that, things happen, and I don't know, man. And that's such an impactful story. I hope people get a lot out of that. I know that I did, and I'm sorry for your loss, man. And that's a huge thing to be able to talk about. And I appreciate you sharing that because, wow, I mean, unbelievable.
It's, dude, miracle. When you can watch a miracle go down in front of you, and especially with like that, it couldn't have been with a nicer kid. That, and
Yeah.
I call him a kid. He's a year older than me, but
Right.
it couldn't have been with a nicer guy. Like
Right.
it,
Right. Right.
and with his dad being there, getting to watch the whole thing,
Hmm.
it was just, it was so perfect in so many ways. And
Yeah.
then we spent a couple days at the hot springs too. After he killed the bull, we ended
After
up,
that, you're like,
I
I'm done. Yeah.
oh dude, we killed ourselves getting that elk out because it was in a
I'm
bad
sure.
spot where we had to
That was
pack
going
him
to be
out.
my next question because you said after you had shot him, you waited for a while, and even before that, you guys had to rock climb and hike up some crazy shit. So explain that to me. Like, how do you get everything back? Obviously, you cut it all up and pack it all up, but like, you couldn't carry that all in one go? Did you have to take it like two trips? Like, how does that work back to your horses or whatever?
So what was nice was that this younger guy Ryan was in such good shape. Like he
Yeah,
told me, he's
it's a
like, dude, I run
marathon.
marathon. Like he runs a marathon for fun.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, I don't do that. I can pack out elk, but I don't have
Right.
that type of stamina in
I
me.
can
So he
carry a
goes,
bit, but yeah, no shot.
well, I told him, I was like, do you mind if while I'm quartering up and getting this elk ready, do you mind hiking quarters down to the trail? Because we were about 500 yards straight up from the trail. And
Okay.
he was like, yeah, sure. So I gave him my backpack, and every time that I would get a quarter done, I would just hand off my backpack to him, and he'd hike down the trail, or hike down to the trail. And the problem was is that he had Onyx maps, but I kind of, I know how to read a, you know, ground to know what's going to be safe and what's not going to be safe to go down. And he got
Uh-huh.
cliffed out twice when he was hiking down
Uh-oh.
through. So like he'd come out to a point and realize it's just a straight drop going off of there, and you can't, there's no way of hiking
Yeah.
down it. So
So you got to go
he
back up
ended
and
up,
around.
yeah. So the first one took him maybe an hour and a half to hike down and hike back up, and in that time frame I was just cutting. And the other nice thing was we had that creek real close to us that was a natural spring, so if you needed water you could just walk over, fill your water bottle up real quick, drink some water, and if you were drinking water on the way down and on the way back up, you'd have a constant refill where you could get good water quickly. So that, I think, did really well for him. Well, we got everything kind of quartered up. I had to cape out his bull on the side of the hill, so like skin out the face and everything, so that he had the taxidermy mount on
Sure.
the side of the hill. And when he came up, I asked his dad. We were on our final trip, and we were trying to figure out how we were gonna get everything down, and because he had taken down a hind quarter and a front quarter at that point. So we had a bag of loose meat, a hind quarter, a front quarter, and uh the head and hide yet that three of us were going to try and take down, and that wasn't
Yeah.
going to work. So I gave the dad a bag. He had a hind quarter. I had loose meat on my back and a front quarter. And
Yeah.
then the kid had the hide, and the hide weighs 70 pounds, 60, 70 pounds, because it's just all skin from like across the chest all the way down to the front of the nose. So we
Right.
ended up, as we're hiking down, the dad realized he couldn't bring meat down because it was going to be too dangerous for him. So I told him, I
Sure.
was like, leave your meat right here. We put it right below the head. And then the kid and I ended up, so the kid did, I think, 4 trips that day. I did 2 trips because I went down, back up, back down. And the dad waited for us down at the trail. And then Sam,
Yeah.
that other guide, he ended up bringing me mules because I was going to have to ride all the way back to camp, pick up another mule or pick up two
Right.
more mules and come back out, get everything. So it took us, all in all, we killed that bull at like 8:30 is what I would say when we put a knife to it. 9 o'clock was when we put a knife to it, and we had it
Mm.
back to camp by dark, and it was a
Yeah.
2-hour ride back to camp. So, and the kid ended up, after he shot the bull, like once we got down, we couldn't. The antlers were too big to put on a mule without the mule scat because these trails are tight. So
Sure.
I asked him, I was like, "Do you want to?" Well, he volunteered. I didn't ask him, but he said, "I'll carry the antlers on my back to camp." So he walked the whole way back to camp holding these antlers on his back, and
Damn.
that was probably 40 pounds of antler, and it was, I mean, it was pretty flat walking, but like the last part of it's kind of pretty steep uphill. So when he came
Two
back into
hours
camp
though,
holding,
man. What's that? A few miles? I
dude,
mean, that's not short,
oh,
man.
like 7.5 miles, 8 miles
Yeah.
that we had to get
Yeah, you're
back.
like, it's flat. It's not that bad. I'm like, bro, that is wild.
Well, what's crazy is I was on horseback and he was on his 2 feet, and he beat me back to camp by a solid 15, 20 minutes.
Oh,
I mean,
jeez. He's looking.
we kept joking. We were like, he's walking on air right now. Because when you're walking through the woods with a rack that big on your back and you were the one that's just put it down, I mean, I had to hike out of camp with it the last day, and I walked 12 miles with that rack, and it felt like I walked a mile with that rack. I was just so
Right.
happy, just want to, you want to get it back to show everybody. And like all the guys in camp, as soon as he brought it back in, they couldn't believe it because all they had heard was big bull down. They didn't know what we meant by big bull until we got there, and they go, you could have said monster bull, not big
Yeah.
bull.
Right. Right.
But
That's crazy. Wow. And then you get it back. You obviously process all the meat. You didn't mention where those guys were from. Did they have to get it quickly and then shipped out?
they
You
were
said
from
something.
Oregon. So I believe what we ended up doing was I took the meat to the butcher shop, and the butchers put a rush order on it so that by the time that the hunt was done, because that was on day 3, they still had 4 more days.
Right.
Wait, day 4, day 5, day 6, and then pack out day. So yeah, they still had 4 more days until they were going to be down again, and they ended up, the butchers had all the meat for them, so they stopped in at the butcher shop, got all their meat, and then continued on their way down. But I'll just show you real quick for the camera, but I don't know if you can see that.
Holy shit. Send that to me. I'll
That
put it up. So I do a video. And I'll have our heads as like bobbleheads, but when I can record it next time, you'll see our lovely faces. But if you text that to me, I'll throw it up at an hour and 15 minutes.
Sounds good. I'll send you a couple of the pictures of, like we took a couple pictures in front of the Boulder Creek Outfitters sign at the bottom. So,
Yeah.
of me and the client holding the rack together, and it was it was cool. And that wasn't even the last elk that I killed for the season. That's what's crazy. Is the
Yeah.
next week we killed another bull on the first day of rifle season, and that was kind of a crazy story too, just because of how everything went down. I had a guy from Vermont ended up breaking 6 ribs and
Oh,
fell off a
geez.
horse, and it
Oh,
was bad. He got a bull out of it though. I mean, he couldn't have been more happy. But
yeah, throw with the experience. Damn, though, that's crazy. No, send me those. I'll put those up the last couple minutes. And yeah, if you want to talk about rifle season a little bit, we can talk about some other animals in that time. And then, we'll probably be at almost 2 hours and wrap it up after that. Hell yeah, dude.
sounds
That's such an
good.
awesome story, inspiring. That's like the pinnacle of that's the pinnacle. How are you going to, where do you go from that, man?
That's what the one cook that was in camp, he goes, I wouldn't want to be you next year. And I said, why is that? He goes, because they're going to expect you to top that. And I was like,
Right.
that's a good point. And I don't think I ever will top it. But,
That's
uh,
incredible.
so rifle season, so that was the last week of archery season. We finished our archery season with
Mhm.
that bull. And I was the only one in camp that ended up getting a bull that week.
Wow.
So, um,
Wow.
uh, after that, I came back to Eagle, Idaho for 5 days from October 1st to the 5th. And then when I got back, we had to pack in the rest of our hay for our elk camp. And because what we do is we break down one full camp. Uh, we only run one pack in camp in October, and then we run a lodge camp where we hunt out of the cabins that we have. And the
Mhm.
cabins are more for, like, I don't want to say the older crowd, but it's like for guys that they can't ride horseback as far. They don't want to live in a backcountry tent for a week. So
Right.
we offer them those
Better
amenities.
amenities. Yeah.
But the first day of our pack-in season, like I had just gotten back from Eagle, and we had a couple brand new horses uh that we had to try out to see if like clients could go on them, if we could use them for the season. And their names were Bo and Jackson, and they were twin horses that were beautiful horses.
Yeah.
And the problem is they used to pull cart, so they were always used to being side by side, and they're brothers, so they have a bond like no other. They don't want to be away from each other. Well, we were in charge of breaking that bond. We had to let them know like they had to be independent. They can't, constantly rely on each other. So I got given the one horse. I think it was Bo is his name. Um, and I rode him down to the trailhead. Well, this horse tried to kill me while I was on its back. And what ended up
Yeah. Man.
happening was the horse reared straight up while I was on him. And luckily, we were in a really flat spot at the bottom of the trail. When the horse reared up, I jumped off of him, and the horse, he would have came down right on top of me. But instead, the horse ended up breaking its back and it killed itself.
Oh, jeez.
And that was like the start of our October. So I was like, well, this sounds like it's going to go real well this year, because there was
Right.
nothing really I could have done about it. He just was very antsy, was very worked up because he didn't want to be away from his brother, but we had to try it out.
Try to
Like
figure
that
that
was,
out. Right.
yeah.
What are
And
you gonna?
yeah,
Sure.
and he ended up doing that on me, and we had to bury him and everything, but it was like that was the
Yeah.
start of our rifle season. So I even thought, I was like, okay, hopefully the rest of the season goes better than what just happened there. And
Sure.
we finished our packing and everything without a hitch. Like after that was really the only hitch in the whole thing, was that incident happening the first morning. And then so we get these guys the first week of rifle season. Three of them are from Florida, and one of them, and Brandon and I are in camp together. Three of them are from Florida. One of them's from Vermont. So I get one of the Florida guys named Sandy, and I get the Vermont guy named Clayton. And first morning we ride out. It's a pretty nice day for the first morning. And a lot of the times in rifle season, you're not going to get elk to bugle, but early on in rifle season, they might still be in that later stage of rut, so you can get them to call back at you.
Gotcha.
So we take off from camp and get out to where I wanted to hunt, and I park the animals and I walk up on the hillside, and there's a funny picture of me where I'm like going like this, and I have my I don't know what I was doing, but I was pointing up the hill and then pointing down the hill, and I was telling the client, I was like, so you're going to be looking up at this face that's above us, watching for any elk crossing. If it's within 400 yards and you feel comfortable, take a shot. If any elk come down below us, what it was is it was an evacuation route for the elk to be able to get out of the drainage if they got spooked from higher up.
Gotcha.
So we sat there for maybe 45 minutes, and and it's a nice spot where in the backcountry where we're at, you can't really look around in glass with binoculars. You're
Hmm.
a lot of the times you're just looking at trees and you're hoping to find movement through the trees. In this spot in particular, you could glass quite a bit. So it was a good way to start the week, and I figured I'd show them some cool country. Well, I'm sitting there looking through my binoculars, and about 2,000 yards away, up on top of a hill, I can see a bull elk raking a tree. Like I see the tree going back and forth, flopping,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I can see the white from the sunshine shining on his antler going back and forth. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, well, that's a hunt for tomorrow. I at least know there's a bull right there because we weren't going to get to him that day. The guys that I had probably weren't going to be able to hike up there. And we didn't have, I
Right.
wasn't going to switch our hunt on moment's notice because I figured there was elk in this range we were sitting on. And we all looked at it for a while and thought it was cool. And we're like, all right, well, tomorrow, that's our hunt. We know that elk's going to hang out around that area. So the client Sandy asked from Florida, he asked me, he's like, hey man, the next time you're gonna rip your call, can you let me know? I want to take a video of it. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I rip on my call and he's videotaping, and all of a sudden I hear a bull respond from the drainage that I was hoping they were in. And I
Yeah.
was like, I kind of stopped and I'm like, okay, all right, what do we do
We got
now?
some. Yeah.
And well, yeah, in my head, I'm like, all right, I don't know if they're gonna be coming towards us, going away from us, staying put, or what. And I ripped another call and they responded and it sounded like they were coming towards us. So I got my guys set up on the ridge that the problem was there Boulder Creek, main Boulder Creek, which is a pretty deep creek, runs in between where us and these elk were. And I had a
Hmm.
feeling that they were not going to cross the creek. They didn't want to. So I grabbed Clayton. He was in a little bit better shape, and I said to he was a little younger, and I said to him, I was like, "Hey man, you're gonna come with me. We're gonna leave Sandy here, and we're gonna go over and try and kill these elk." And I set Sandy up that if these elk evacuated from this drainage, if they came down drainage, there's a giant meadow that they're gonna run through. And I told him, don't shoot anything that doesn't have antlers. I was like, if you see an antlered bull coming down through, try and get a shot at it. If they're at full tilt run, don't take a shot. But if they're just walking through, take a shot. So Clayton and I take off and we go up and over this ridge. And I figured out where, like, a lot of elk hunting is figuring out where they are on the mountain so that you can get online with them. Like, if you're below them or above them, a lot of the times you just want to be right on the same level as them.
Sure.
So we come up over this ridge and I call, and all of a sudden now instead of one bull bugling, there's two bulls bugling. So I kind of said to him, I was like, well, we're getting into a herd and we're going to try and kill the herd bull. But what? And he goes, I just want to kill something with antlers. And I'm like, sounds good to me. We'll kill the first thing we see.
Right.
So we go hiking in on him. And granted, this guy's using a 300 Winchester Magnum, which is a very heavy round. And it's a round that's made to shoot, like you're made to shoot 4, 5, 600 yards with this gun. So
Right.
you're expecting long shots. Well, I'll ruin the story real quick, but we're ending up shooting this elk at 30 yards
Oh,
is how close
wow.
we got to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we hear him bugling. I'm going back and forth with these bulls, and they're both just screaming away. And Clayton had never gotten to experience that, so it was a cool time to like really hear them talking. You could hear the cows mewing in the herd
Hmm.
and the calves going off. So we started slipping into where these elk were, and I got into a very thick aspen patch where it's real rocky. There's brush that's real tall, big aspen trees, and we can't see 10 yards in front of us. So I'm kind of just like, I'm telling Clayton to follow me, and I don't know where I'm going. So I'm
Right.
kind of just making this up as I go. And as we're hiking through, I hear these elk really close to us. So I stop him and I'm like, just turn your scope to the lowest power it can go and just get ready because one might just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I rip a cow
Right.
call and this one bull came charging in on us. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there, right there he is. And he comes running in and we can't see antlers. All we can see is body and like the brown of his body, but we can't see
Sure.
antlers. So I told him, I was like, don't shoot. Like we can't even tell what part we're looking at right now.
Right.
So we're sitting there and I figured how our wind was blowing that we were about to blow all these elk out of the universe, like that they were just going to disappear. Well, they ended up moving off maybe 150, 200 yards, and it gave me time to pick my way through this. And I found the elk trail that they were on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was like a highway going through there, and it was the only flat spot walking through that entire rocky patch. So we hopped on the elk trail and we go sneaking down the elk trail and I'm ripping my cow call and I'm breaking branches so that they know like I'm in the area, I'm coming towards them, and these
Right.
bulls are just screaming at me. And I'm like, dude, I really hope, because I started thinking, I'm like, this is the first day. This would be crazy if we pull this off.
Yeah.
And we come around a bend and there's an alderbrush patch again. Now, what's really nice is that this drainage at the bottom of it, very, very flat. We had a horse trail running straight through this drainage. So when we kill an elk, it's not going to be hard to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And all that started going through my head, and I see the alderbrush and it's folded over from where the elk went through it. And I was like, okay, they got to be right around here. And there's a big, tall rock that's like 6 feet tall right next to this alderbrush. And you see the elk trail goes right around the rock. So I creep up to the rock, and Clayton's right behind me. And I peek over the rock, and this bull is standing there grazing at 30 yards. I
Just
mean,
right there.
broadside to us, had no idea we were there.
Yeah.
And I kind of just slunked back down and I grabbed and I went, turn your fucking safety off. And he goes, what? And I went, there's a bowl right here. When I
Yeah.
move you over here, I am going to stay down. I need you to shoulder the gun, pop up, and shoot him right in the shoulder. And he goes, okay. He turns the scope power all the way down, clicks the safety off. And I said, before you stand up, just look at him so you know where he's at. And he peeks his head up over, and his eyes got like this. I mean, just wide as pole balls. And I told him, I was like, yeah, he's right there. And he goes, okay. And he pops up, and I popped up with him, and I saw the elk's head turn to look at us, and he lets the shot go and folds this elk. I mean, flat.
Oh
And
yeah.
I turned, dude, I hit him so hard in the shoulder, I gave him a dead arm. I was so excited. Like, I turned and went, good shot, man, and punched him in the arm. And I'm looking over, and the elk tries to stand up. So I'm like, hit him again, hit him again. And he pulls up, shoots him two more times, and the elk ended up standing up and taking off and running 200 yards. But the good thing was he ran down into the flat part of the drainage. He didn't run
Yeah.
uphill, he went downhill. So where he ended up dying, we had a flat 150-yard walk to, over to where the horses ended up being tied up, where I brought them down to. So it was
Easy
easy
money.
packing them out.
Yep.
But like I said, he ended up breaking 6 ribs, and this is how he ended up doing it. So, we got all this meat packed out, got the elk quartered up, got all the pictures taken and everything. And now where we were about an hour and 15 minutes from camp, an hour and 15 minute ride. So
Mm-hmm.
the first trip we did, I took most of the elk meat back. I left the head. I left, and I think two front quarters is what I left. The head and two front quarters.
Sure.
So we go back to camp, and when we get there, I tell Clayton, I'm like, "Hey man, you're not that experienced on horseback." I was like, "You can stay here if you want, and I'll just go get the rest of the meat. It looks like it's gonna rain. It might thunderstorm." And I said, "I don't want you being out there if like shit goes haywire. Like I can handle my own." And he goes, "Well, I don't really feel too comfortable with you being out there on your own." He goes, "All right, it's better to have two just in case something goes wrong than it is one." And I went, "I'm not going to argue that because you're right. It's common sense." So I was like, if something goes wrong with me and I get hurt, I could use another person, but I just didn't want to risk it. And
Right.
he goes, "I'll go with you." So I take him out. We get out to the elk again, throw all the meat on the mule. I throw the antlers on my back. So I'm riding a horse with the antlers on my back.
Yeah.
And And it wasn't like a giant bull, like it was a good sized bull, but it was small enough that I felt perfectly comfortable riding with the antlers on my back. So
Right.
we take off and we get about 45 minutes into our hour and 15-minute ride. So we have like a half an hour left until we're at camp. And all of a sudden, it starts pouring down rain on us and thunder. It starts getting windy. And I'm like, oh, it's not a problem. Like, we'll be back to camp in no time. If a tree falls down, we'll just go around it or whatever.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, my mule that has the meat runs square into the back of my horse and spooks. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm trying to keep my horse calm. My mule's running around. I've got antlers on my back, so I'm trying not to get thrown off.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Well, I hop off and I hit my headlamp and look at him, and Clayton is lying face down on the ground, just like moaning. And
Oh,
I'm like,
gee.
I stopped and I'm like, what the heck just happened? So I tie up my animals, I take off my backpack, and I come over and Slide, the horse he was riding, is just like kind of feeding. Great. Like Slide didn't spook or anything. So I'm like, what just happened that he is now on the ground? And I walk over and I roll him over. And I'm like, are you okay? And he goes, dude, and he said it was his ribs. And I was like, well, what? You need to tell me what happened. And he said Slide had taken a step, and because the rocks were slick, his shoe caused him to slide on the mud. And he like took we were going slightly downhill, and I think Clayton didn't really have like all of his weight. Like you're supposed to sit when you're going downhill, you're supposed to lean back.
Back
So
a
your
little bit.
weight is yeah, you want to keep your weight centered no matter if you're going up, down, forwards, backwards, or sideways.
Sure.
And I don't think he had all his weight centered. So when Slide slipped, his weight was already sitting forward on the horse, and Clayton ended up going right over top of Slide.
Oh,
And when he landed on a log or a rock right off the side of the trail, and he ended up breaking ribs 6 through 11 on his left side. So I kind of like I can't do anything for broken ribs. And I told him
right.
that. I was like, I can give you some water. I can like, make sure you're not internally bleeding, like you're not coughing up blood or anything, but I can't do anything for that. So
Right.
we sat there for like 5, 10 minutes. I let him gather his breath and everything. And he told me, he goes, I heard the crunch when I hit the ground. So I know I broke a couple ribs. And I was like, okay.
Mhm.
Well, I told him, I was like, you don't have to get back on Slide. If you just want to walk back to camp, that's fine. It's all flat from here, flat and downhill, and not
Right.
steep downhill. It's just like slightly
Right.
downhill. And he goes, no, I think I'm going to get back on the horse. And I'm like, all right, if that's what you want to do. And I put him back on the horse and we rode back to camp, and he did perfectly fine to get back to
Wow.
camp. So once we were in camp, then I checked him out a little bit more, and he was already bruising
Oh,
on his
sure.
whole rib cage. So
I'm
I
sure.
just had the clients kind of look after him that night. I was like, hey, like if you hear any weird stuff with his breathing, if like he's spitting up blood, if something happens, you need to just come get me, and I'll get him an SOS flight out of here if I
Right.
have to.
Back right.
Luckily none of that happened. And then the next day I packed him out of camp because he was there for an elk. He got his elk the first day and he was done. So he was like, yeah, I'll just go out of camp with you. And he seemed in really good spirits too. So it wasn't
That's
bad.
good.
And I took him out of camp. He ended up driving 3 days back to Vermont before he even went to the hospital. And then when he got back there, I guess all the nurses and doctors thought he was such a badass because he killed an elk, broke 6 ribs, drove back across the country with said elk, and then decided to go to the ER.
You then
But
went
yeah,
and got
he had a oh dude, he
oh
had
my
a swollen colon. He had fluid in his lungs, bruised lungs, broken ribs. Oh, it was horrible. But he's all good now, and we
he's
talk
okay.
about it. Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah,
hit me up
sure.
not too long ago and said everything's all healed up now. He goes,
Good.
everybody at my work thinks I'm such a badass because I did that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, if I broke my ribs, I wouldn't have drove back across the country before I got them checked out.
Yeah, hell no. What a story.
But
Man, I love that he's like, I don't know, he's so appreciative of the course of events, I guess, is a good way to put it. Like it's an unbelievable story. It's an unbelievable chain of events, the whole thing that happened, and love that he's in good spirits and enjoyed the moment. That's what it seems like.
oh
Creating
yeah,
you
he had a
create
great trip.
and yeah, good. Yeah, love it. Love it. Damn. Well, elk season sounded pretty phenomenal by the sound of it. Did you get anything else the last couple days? You said that was the first day. There were a couple other guys out there, but anything
We
else?
didn't get anything out of that camp the rest of rifle season. We got some pretty bad snow that came in and it pushed all the elk down. So we ended up not taking anything. The other camp, they ended up getting one in rifle season the last week of rifle. They shot a couple mule deer. Um,
Nice.
we had a shot at a pretty nice bear. Um, Other than that, we ended up pulling out of the whole company. We out of the whole wilderness part of the company, we ended up getting two bulls in rifle season. So we did a lot better in archery than we did in rifle. But it amounted to out of everybody we got, yeah, seven bulls total out of the
Nice.
backcountry this year. So it was a good season. We haven't gotten that many in a while just because of how small the elk herd is out there and how hard it can be to hunt. But now that we've got guys that have been working in that area for quite a few years, we have we have the experience to be able to at least get out, get on elk, and then it comes down to the hunters after we know where we're going and how to get in on
Right.
the elk. But but yeah, and then we went into our November whitetail season in Whitebird, Idaho, and we had a great
So that was
whitetail
great.
season. Yeah, yeah, we had EHD hit us pretty hard, the blue tongue disease. So
Oh,
our mature buck population was not as high as we like to see it. The bottom end of our ranch was kind of a ghost town for deer for a while until deer started filtering in from the public land as their deer seasons closed. But I took a couple nice bucks in whitetail season. I had clients that I've hunted with for years at this point come back, and we got to shoot some pretty cool deer. Missed a couple that were really nice. The whole outfit as a whole during whitetail, we tagged out pretty well almost every week. I think there might have been 1 week that we didn't tag out, and it's 3 weeks of hunting. So
mm,
with six yeah, six hunters a week. So we did well. We did pretty well, but it was a lot of fun. We shot some giant deer that we haven't shot deer like that since my first year of whitetail season when I
yeah,
killed a really big one. But Sam, the other guide, he killed two very sizable whitetails that were in the 150 160 inch range for a whitetail deer, which isn't quite Boone and Crockett, but it's pretty close.
yeah.
um
Sizable,
but yeah,
sizable. So, yeah, one thing I wanted to note in what you had said earlier, like full circle moment, man. You know, you said you were back in the general area or vicinity that you had initially gone out there and done. You said I think it was the wilderness school, and you learned that area. So that's pretty neat. Not to like, obviously it'd be cool to come back to the same area year over year, but like not being there for what was it? You said 2 or 3 seasons, and you come back with all this experience and knowledge and like, you know, not necessarily in that region or area, but like general knowledge about the guiding and all the animals and the actual wilderness that's out there. I can't imagine how that must have been doing that for a second time, but so long apart, if that makes any sense. Like just coming back to it's familiar, but like you know so much more, you
it
know?
felt like I hate to say this, but it felt like home. Like I got there,
Yeah,
and
sure.
because that was my first camp that I had ever been in when I was working for Boulder Creek, I kind of like as soon as I got there, I felt a level of confidence in this season that I hadn't felt in other seasons because it's camps that it's area that like, yeah, you can look at a map and go, I think elk are going to be here. I think elk are going to be here. But when you have like the physical experience of I've already hiked these trails 3 years ago, I knew there was elk in this point and that point, and I got into elk here and I got into elk there, and you can go back to your what a lot of people say stomping grounds because
Sure.
it was funny to me like going there my first year with zero experience and I still got into elk, and I had very close calls with elk. I had clients draw at 10 yards and we didn't get a bull. So like this year going into it, I just had like I don't want to say I had a chip on my shoulder, but I was like, man, I know where elk are going to be. I know when they're going to be there. I know what they're going to be doing. And it and I even got to explore like new areas that I hadn't got to explore my first year working there. So like there's a trail called Greenside Butte that I ended up going up, and we saw some elk up in there, some not no bulls, but some cow elk. And I learned at the same time that I already understood where I was and where I wanted to hunt. I still had more to learn about that camp and the surrounding areas that I could hunt. And I didn't fixate myself on one spot in particular where I was like, I know my first year I got into a bull here. I'm going to hunt this as hard as I can for 3 weeks straight. And if nothing works out, nothing works out. I was branching off in all directions because I just wanted to take in as much from that camp that I didn't get to learn my first year now that I could, because I knew which honey holes were going to be when and what weeks I wanted to hunt those honey holes, because I experienced like my first year, like the second week of elk season was just when the elk went on fire. And I knew I didn't want to hunt the mountain called Gold Hill until I really knew they were going to be there, which was the second week. I knew they'd be up there the second week, but I took experiences from like the guides that I had hunted with my first year where they told me the first week of elk season they were up all over Gold Hill and they didn't find anything. And that amazed me because then I started thinking, I'm like, well, I know the elk have to move in from somewhere and they're coming in the second week or the tail end of the first week, which is exactly what ended up happening this year. Is we got into them up on that mountain at the tail end of the first week, and I knew that place was where I wanted to go the second week because the elk were going to be on fire, the conditions were going to be right. The rain
Mm-hmm.
came in, the cold front pushed in, the bugles started, coming through, and it helped my other guide buddy Brandon too, because he had never hunted that camp. So the fact that I had at least one season of experience hunting that camp, it helped both of us because we both knew, where we wanted. And he didn't know where elk were going to be, but he'd pull up on a map and go, elk are probably going to be right here. And I could sit there and be like, well, my first year, I got into two bulls right here, right above
Yep.
where you're talking about. So you're right. There's going to be elk in there. I can tell you that for a fact. But
Yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, how often will animals like that change up patterns? Like, will you guys as hunters in that area, are there enough of you killing enough elk that it'll impact their maybe their natural like patterns? Like, will you have to change your strategies in 5, 10, 15 years because the animals will catch on? I guess is my question.
We may have to, but like how elk are very much so. They're very much so creatures of habit. So like if you ever go
Right.
into like an old rubbing area, like a lot of the times what public land hunters are looking for is they're looking for sign, and even if that sign is 5, 10 years old, if you find an old rubbing area, you'll find rubs from bulls going back 10 years all the way
Mm,
up to this year. And it's
sure.
because the herd follows the herd bulls, and the calves that are coming through learn from those herd bulls. So they know where the food is, where the bedding is, where the water is, and they learn that from a very young age, and they take that into account every year. So like elk, there's how our elk work is there's parceled out into these really small herds, and each herd has their own ways of what in that particular drainage or that particular area where they'll be. They move like crazy, don't get me wrong, but there's certain times of the year where you can expect elk to be in a certain area because that's the time that they push through that area. And if they're not forced out of it, they'll stay there. So, like we hunted, I mean, last year there, I couldn't tell you how many bulls we didn't kill that are still in the areas that we know this upcoming year that if we hunt that camp again, they're going to be
Hmm.
right back there. It's just a matter of finding them and then working them. And a big thing that comes into that is switching up your calls. Like if you're using this, I use an easy sucker, Phelps game call easy sucker, which is like the most basic cow call on the market, but if you know how to use it, it can work really, really well. And I messaged the owner of Phelps Game Calls, Jason Phelps, and I sent him a picture of all the bulls that I've killed because in every single picture of me with a bull, I've got that easy sucker hanging right off of my neck.
Yeah.
And that's just my go-to call. And it's you can make so many different pitches and winds with that call that even if an elk has heard it before, you can create a different sound that it hasn't heard before. Whereas
Interesting.
with certain elk calls, like if they that's why during a season, like if you blow an elk out, you immediately want to switch your calls because you don't want it, he'll recognize that, hey, the last time I came into that call, something screwy happened. So I'm
Mhm.
not going to go into that call. But if you switch it up, then they think it's a new cow, it's a new bull,
Right.
it's a whole new
Slightly
ball
different.
game for them. Yeah.
Sure.
And elk are smart enough that, like, I mean, this is no bullshit. You could be standing on a ridge a mile from a bull, rip a bugle off, and that bull responds on the opposite ridge, and that bull will walk the whole way across the valley, up the mountain you were on, and stand next to the tree that you just bugled from.
So they
They
know.
are that good at picking out where those noises came from. And
Right.
I never realized that because I always thought it was general area type of thing, but elk are so good at locating, and that's what like we as guides aspire to be is like if we hear a bugle, I love to look at a map and go, that elk is standing right here. I know
Right.
exactly where he's standing. I know where he's going to go. I know how we can beeline him and cut him off on his general path. And elk are just they're animals that are just so smart in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, so cool, so cool. So two things, two additional things, and we can wrap it up. I know we didn't get to talk about fishing this time, so we'll put that on the back burner for the next episode. We'll definitely have a large segment on that. I have a couple buddies that I've talked to recently that I really would love to pair you guys up and just honestly. So this happened on a recent podcast that I did. I'm like, we were talking a lot about like college basketball, which I don't have as much knowledge about. And I had two buddies over here in the studio, and they are just like battling it out with facts. And I'm like, I love this. I love listening and learning new things. So I'd love to have you guys together, watch you guys banter it out, because it's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and they can potentially ask better questions, give better information to some of the listeners out here. So got to get you on that. That was the first comment. Second one, you had mentioned you shot a whitetail, I think your first year. You had said, how often do you get to personally go out and like actively hunt animals? Because I know like part of your job is being a guide. Do you do that for leisure? Do you have opportunity to do so while you're on any of those trips?
So I know I said I shot a whitetail my first year. I meant my client, but actually this past year I did get to shoot my own whitetail. Um, at like me personally, I got to shoot. We already ate the whole thing, but
Nice.
as a guide, most of the time, like when I was in guide school, my instructor actually said to us, he goes, "Well, I hope you guys like hunting. I really hope you guys like hunting, but I will tell you for the rest of your lives that you are a guide. You'll hunt every day. You just won't pull the trigger."
Right.
And I kind of thought about that. I was like, that's a really good perspective to have, and it's true. Because I mean, realistically, as a guide, all of your working time is during the season. And it's usually from the start of the season to the end of the season is you are hunting the animals with paying clients. So
Right.
for me, like this past year, I had asked if and it comes down to if you get your clients tagged out, because one thing that you're not allowed to do as a guide is if there are still tags in camp for for the animals that you are hunting for, it becomes an issue of competition where just because you have a tag, there's someone who paid thousands of dollars to hunt the animal that
Absolutely.
you want to go out and shoot. So we have a rule that like at our ranches, what I did this past year was I killed the last week of whitetail season. I with my two clients, it was a father and son from California. They both tagged out on the second day of the hunt. So my season was over. It was
Right.
completely over. So, and I had a whitetail tag in my pocket that was good for either a buck or a doe. So I asked my boss, I was like, hey, do you mind if now, if it comes down to it, if I shoot a whitetail doe off of the ranch? And he told me, he's like, that's perfectly fine. No bucks. You cannot shoot a buck off of the ranch, especially if there's clients that still have a buck tag, because that creates
Right.
a very big conflict of interest where
Absolutely.
we have better knowledge about these deer than these clients do. We know where big bucks are going to be. And if you shoot a giant buck off of the ranch and come back with it in a side by side, and there's two guys that are still hunting that paid 5,500 for the week to hunt, and neither of them have
Ridiculous.
gotten a buck yet, that
Hmm.
turns into a giant problem.
Absolutely.
What I was doing was it because I was hunting myself. Instead of hunting on our ranch, I would go to public land and I
Hmm.
would try and hunt whitetail on public land by myself, so that if I got a deer, because we don't hunt the public land off of our ranch, we specifically whitetail hunt for the big bucks on our ranch. If I shoot
Gotcha.
one on public, not a conflict of interest, not really a big deal. If I
Right.
now that's why I added about if I didn't get a buck on public, could I shoot a doe on private land? Because then really all you're in it for the skin and like all the skin in the game is for meat, and that's what I
Right.
wanted was I just wanted deer meat. So,
Absolutely.
um, I I ended up shooting a doe on the second to last day of the hunt, and we still had hunters that hunted all the way until the last day, and then we tagged out our guys on the last day. And
Nice.
all I would do is I'd go out and scout for the bucks, and I if I saw a nice buck, I would immediately contact a guide and be like, "Hey, there's a buck over here. I'm out doe hunting, but I'm not going to shoot a doe if there's a big buck running around, especially in this
Right.
area. Come over, kill this buck, and then I'm just going to go to a different spot to hunt doe." So I
Hmm.
would just, go somewhere else on the range that other guys aren't. But this year, if all works out, I contacted the ranch manager and the owner. It's the owner's son of the one ranch that we hunt, and they run a late season cow elk hunt. So it's
Nice.
after all of our seasons are over. It's during mountain lion season,
Right.
off of the ranch that we lease. So I'm hoping that I get a tag for a cow elk. So then
That'd be cool.
it's like the first week of December, I'll go up and I'll shoot my first elk, a cow elk.
That'd be cool. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. And would you use a rifle for that, I would assume? That
yeah.
late?
Yep. Yep.
Very
And
cool.
all it really is a meat hunt, and that's all I want. I've got two freezers that I'm hoping to fill up by the end of the year with. And the other thing too that we can do is like there's a draw tag for Unit 14, which is it's a later hunt mule deer whitetail tag. So you can shoot either a mule deer or a whitetail with it. Um, if you draw that tag later in the year, if I tag out my clients, I would go onto public land and I try and shoot a mule deer for myself because
Hmm.
there's a lot more mule deer bucks on the public than there is whitetail bucks. So
Gotcha.
that's something I'm hoping to do this year, and you can get a little bit more meat off a mule deer as well. So,
Right.
but I've
Well,
shot
that
turkeys myself. I'm hoping to shoot a bear for myself this year because now that I'm an
nice.
Idaho resident, you can get the tags for a lot cheaper than a non-resident. So
Mhm.
I can buy my sportsman's package, which is a whitetail, a mule, or a deer tag, a bear tag, a turkey tag, your fishing license, your salmon permit, a wolf tag, all combined together for a total of $130. And then,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yep.
That's really cool.
So it's cool.
Yeah.
They let us,
Yeah.
they try and let us hunt when we have time to hunt. But, with pack in season and doing the wilderness camps and everything, our elk season opens September 1st. So we only start hunting elk for the outfits September 7th. September 6th is our pack in day. And
Mhm.
you can, I mean, I'm sure if I asked, I might be able to do that, but we have so much going on with packing that it's really you don't have time to
Sure.
go out like archery elk hunting for yourself or like our rifle season for elk. It runs from opening day of rifle season to the last day of rifle season. We have hunters, so you can't really hunt for yourself in that unless hunters were to leave early or and the other thing too is if on the public land, like if we're hunting the wilderness hunts, we know where the elk are. We've hunted the elk quite a bit. If we go out and take a bull for ourselves and we have clients coming in the next week, well, that's one less
Right.
animal that those clients can take. So that's where it turns into a conflict of interest too, and not like on the state level for like penalties or fines or anything like that, but where a hunter comes in and you tell them, yeah, I shot a bull 3 days ago for myself, and you're gonna take them out to the same area you were just hunting that bull, and it's like, well, so you shot a bull. It turns into, hey, I paid 7,200 to come out here and hunt
Right.
elk with you, and you're going to tell me that you shot a bull out of the same spot. So that's one less bull off the board, and the total harvest in that unit is very low. So I mean, it's a crapshoot to begin with if you're going to get an elk or not. But to knock down the percentage of a chance, a lot of guys take that very seriously and they take it to heart. Like, hey, man, I get you want to kill a bull, but I paid to come out here and hunt, and now I get to see pictures of your bull, and I go home with nothing, and that's where a lot of guys get a little upset about it. So we don't hunt public land for elk or anything.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm sure it's really tough doing all that. But I'm glad you enjoy it, man. It sounds like I don't know, it sounds like you really enjoy it and you're making experiences and moments for, all of these people that do choose to come out and do that with you guys. And it's awesome. It sounds incredible. I'm loving the stories that you have. We're nearing up on 2 hours here. Why don't you kind of tell me what's going on, kind of the future for this year, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Get on with our Saturday afternoons. Hope you got a bunch of fun shit going on.
Oh, I get to do my taxes, and I got to go get my oil changed on my truck and finish my packing for. I leave on Monday to go up to our base ranch, and then by the end of this upcoming week, I'll probably be in the woods riding mules, packing for packing bait in for bears and
Hell
getting
yeah.
everything ready. But this year, I mean, outlook's looking pretty good. We got a good set of guys that we're going to be hunting with. I've got a lot of return clients coming back this year that I'll be hunting with. So a lot of
Nice.
guys from the past few years that I know real well. Whitetail season, especially, I've got a lot of guys that I've hunted quite a few years with at this point. This will be my fourth year with Boulder Creek. So um, it's looking pretty good. And the one thing that we're worried about, like always, is the fires out here. Fire season could get pretty bad because of how dry it's been out here and how we just
Mhm.
haven't had snow, snowpack coming in. Um, but our bear season is looking like it should be very good. We should have, and I'll get back with you in July and let you know how everything went with that. Uh,
Yes.
but so this year for bear season in June, I will be in a wilderness pack-in camp. So last year in June, they ended up taking 16 bears out of this wilderness packing camp that I'll be in. So we should have some stories because there's a lot more bears to be taken in this area, this particular area that we're going into. Giant population of bears and some really big ones too. So we're going to be pulling a lot of different strategies that we haven't tried in the past this season for bears. We're going to
Exciting.
uh, we don't really have any new guides starting off, so um, we're all pretty seasoned and have a good idea of what we're going to be doing. So really, as soon as we get into the woods, we can kick into high gear and get everything done that we need to get done to be ready for the May 3rd opener. Our first clients will show
Right.
up on May 3rd. And last year I believe we killed 3 bears on the first day of May on the first hunting day of May last year. So our goal is to try and beat that.
Yeah.
Let's see. For May, should go really well. June should go really well. And then elk season is just as soon as July hits and I get my month off, I start hearing ringing in my ears for bugles, and you start getting antsy. So it should be overall a very productive year for our outfit. And I think that this year will every year that I've worked here, it's just gotten better and better. So I
Yeah.
think that this year should be a really defining year for our outfit and how well we're doing as a whole. So should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, love it, man. Love it. I always appreciate you coming on to chat, even the chats we've had outside of the recorded form of the podcast, of course. Man, it's wonderful to hear from you. It's awesome that you enjoy this so much. That's what I love to do. Talk to people that are passionate about the things that they enjoy doing, man. It's like, I don't know, diving head first into any of these hobbies, and it's not even like a hobby anymore. It's like a lifestyle when you love it so much and you like ingrain yourself in it day in and day out. But yeah, man, so things for the future. Documentary style piece. I think that would be so fun. Uh, we'll have to get together outside of this, kind of show me what you got, the Ray-Ban Meta glasses from maybe the bear season or whatever. We'll sit down and look at it and then kind of plan out and figure out what we want to do with that. Got to get a fishing and hunting. I do a book club, I do a sports style one. I've actually had a lot of people come on the podcast that are passionate about the outdoors, not even hunting, fishing, but just nature ingrained people. So I think that might be a fun one to get a small group together. Maybe 3, maybe 4 people could be fun. And then we'll have you on again at the end of July, man, or sometime in July before you go back out for elk.
Sounds good. And just to add on to what you said, I've always heard the phrase, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day, right?
That's right, baby. No, but I
And
wanted to give you a chance. Oh no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's how it's been since I started. Is
Yes.
even on the miserable days when you're soaking wet riding on horseback and you don't want to do what you're doing, it's just a level of appreciation that hey, I'm in the woods and I'm doing what my younger self would have wanted me to go do. So
Yep.
it's there's never a day where you don't learn something in the woods, especially where we're at out here. It's a different type of feeling than being in Pennsylvania, and all I can tell you, everybody that taught me anything about hunting in Pennsylvania, I spread thanks to them because it pushed me to come out here and really want to be the guy that I wanted to be when I was a kid. So
Yeah, 100%, man. Those people in your life are can be so influential, and it's awesome to pay them the respect that they're kind of due in those situations. And mentors like that mean everything, man. Like having that experience, getting the right people to push you to go out there, and obviously you found good people out there to be around in this organization and do your thing, man. So before we get going, I wanted to give you a second to kind of give everybody your social media platforms, Boulder Creek, like tell us how we can find all that stuff and what you guys kind of do and have planned in the future here.
oh yeah, if you anybody listening, if you want to look me up on Instagram or TikTok, I'm robtaylor.guide, and Taylor spelled Taylor. And I post pretty much, everything going on from our seasons. I'll post different videos of like us riding in the backcountry, us packing, the videos from elk season, the videos from bear season, all the different stuff that we do as a whole. Boulder Creek, you can look up Boulder Creek or at Boulder Creek Outfitters on Instagram or Facebook, and they'll pop up for you. And if you ever, now this is for anybody that fancies booking themselves a hunt to come out here, you can look us up on Google at Boulder Creek Outfitters, and it'll pop up Idaho's premier big game outfitter, and you can read our bio and everything about our company and how long we've been around. See the different pictures of our different campsites that we stay at and the different ranches that we stay at. And one thing I did want to add, we had a guy from Palmyra actually come out hunting with us in mountain lion season this year. It was one of the guys that
Incredible.
my mom and my aunt graduated with out of high school. His name is Mike, and he
Wow.
ended up first day of his hunt, he shot a mountain lion and a bobcat within 3 hours of each other. So
Wow.
it was pretty cool. They have that picture on Boulder Creek, but yeah. If you want to look us up on any type of social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on TikTok, and yeah, that's if you want to ever follow along. We post some pretty cool stuff on there.
It is. It is pretty neat. I'm one of those stands of Rob's following along. I'm not on social media as much. I'm trying to wean my way off of that a little bit. Obviously, it's important for me as, a media producer, podcaster to be on there at least a little bit. And of course, I want to be on there to stay connected with people like you and the other guys, gals, people I've connected with over the years. But man, it's
Oh
always
yeah.
an honor talking to you, bro. It's a pleasure having you. I really appreciate you taking almost 2 hours, 15 minutes out of your Saturday, man.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for working with me. I know schedules were a little bonky, so I'm glad we got to have this talk before I disappeared into the woods for a while. So,
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you working it out too. That's the way it is, man. That's why I need a personal assistant, bro. I need a scheduler. Everybody's busy, man. People are doing their own things, and obviously you're developing your passion. So it's obviously all good. We figured it out, and can't wait to do it next time, bro.
Sounds good. Well, I can't wait for next time, and I'll have some more stories for you.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you will. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us 2 hours and 10 minutes into this podcast. Go give Rob some love over on Instagram, TikTok, social medias, whatever. Follow along his journey. If you want to listen or see any more of our stuff, we're at Slanted Attic. SlantedAttic.com is live, so go there, check it out. We've got a whole guest archive. Rob's on there. Links to his episodes, information. I think I do have Boulder Creek's website in there as well. If I do not, I'll put it on. But check that out. We've also got a link tree. We're on Apple Music, Spotify, everything, YouTube. But thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you guys on the next one.